Often I will hear somebody give a talk about Islam, and sometimes I can be so critical, and I'm critical of myself, but I'll get so disappointed because somebody will come give a presentation on Islam to non-Muslims, and they'll talk about the pillars of Islam. They'll mention Hajj, this, that, this and that. At the end of it, the person didn't really leave understanding what is the message of Islam. The message of Islam is not Hajj. The message of Islam is not fasting Ramadan. The message of Islam is one message, so simple, the message of all of the prophets. Allah says in the Quran, He gives us this message and tells us the very reason we were created. Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that I have not created the jinn and mankind except for one purpose, for the purpose of worshiping me. This is why we were created. And this is such a simple message, but it differentiates us from the others. That our reason for being created is to worship Allah alone. This is why we were created. And this is the very reason that Allah sent all of the prophets and messengers. Every prophet and messenger was sent with one thing, with one statement. Where are we at? Come on, man. I'm just joking with you, doing a great job. Every prophet and messenger, he has not seen these slides, so I would not want to be doing what he's doing. It's very difficult, and so work with us. We don't have a clicker here, so you have somebody clicking who's never seen the slides, so he's doing a great job to try to keep up. He doesn't know what I'm about to say. It's a hit and miss. But every prophet and messenger, they came with the one command to the people, with the unified message to the people. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. Allah says in the Quran, and assuredly we have sent to every nation a messenger with the command or with the statement, worship Allah alone and avoid the worship of the taghut, often loosely translated as avoid the worship of the false gods, or anybody who tries to ascribe worship towards them. This is the message of all of the prophets. All of them had this one unified call, this one unified da'wah, to invite the people to worship their Creator. And there's so many verses in the Quran in this regard. And Allah sent Nuh to his people, telling them to invite to worship Allah. And Allah sent this prophet and that prophet to their people with this instruction. But all going back to that same verse, that they were all sent with the statement of worship Allah alone and avoid the false gods. Specifically, we're living in a Christian country. Statistically, it's more than 50% Christian by name. It is, statistically. So how do we address the Christians in this regard? We have the guidance, as always. And again, when somebody asks you how to give da'wah, how to do anything, I said I would come back to this. We don't use my opinion, or your opinion, or anybody else's opinion. وَخَيْرُ الْكَلَامِ, the best of speech, kalamullah, is the speech of Allah. And the خَيْرُ الْهَدِي هَدِي Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the best of guidance is the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we go to these two sources, and we look at what they have. Allah says in the Quran, specifically regarding the people of the book, the Jews and Christians, Ya ahl al-kitab. He told Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam to say to them, O people of the book, تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم. Come to a fair word of agreement between us and between you. ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا. That we will not worship anyone or anything except Allah, and that we will not ascribe partners to Him. This is so clear. This is how Allah instructed Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. But so often when we're trying to invite people to Islam, we get caught up talking to them about hijab, talking to them about pork, talking to them about alcohol, talking to them about everything out there except what the main thing is we're supposed to focus on. And people try to say, well, yeah, but they know that. Well, no, they don't know that, because they're still worshiping some blue-eyed, white-faced Jesus. Right? So they don't understand that. It says, say to the Christians, Ya ahl al-kitab, O people of the book, come to a word of agreement between us and you that we will not worship anyone or anything but Allah. And look at the following hadith. How Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam himself, who had the best of guidance, look at how he implemented this hadith himself. How did he teach his companions? There's a famous hadith of his companion Mu'adh ibn Jabal. In the hadith, it's narrated by Abu Hurairah, and it said that لما بعث النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم معاذ بن جبل إلى نحو أهل اليمن قال له. When the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, he said to him, إنك تقدم على قوم من أهل الكتاب. Verily you will come across a people from the people of the book. فَلْيَكُنْ أَوَّلَ مَا تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَىٰ أَن يُوَحِّدُوا اللَّهَ تَعَالَى. So let it be the first thing that you teach them or instruct them to be the establishment of the oneness of the worship of Allah. This is exactly how you would translate that. To the establishment of the oneness of the worship of Allah. Then he said, فَإِذَا عَرَفُوا ذَلِكَ. And then when they get that, فَإِذَا عَرَفُوا ذَلِكَ فَأَخْبِرْهُمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ فَرَضَ عَلَيْهِمْ خَمْسَ صَلَوَاتٍ فِي يَوْمِهِمْ وَلَيْلَتِهِمْ. And when they get that, I love to stress that, and when they get that, when they understand that, when they're agreeing with you, then at that point, inform them that Allah has made obligatory 5 prayers in the day and the night. It didn't say tell them, then move on, talk to them about hijab. It says instruct them and inform them that there is no deity, to establish with them the oneness of the worship of Allah. And you don't stop until that's done. How long did Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam teach this? So long that people might have got sick of it, want to pull their hair out, All the time, Tawheed, 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 for so many years. Before Hajj, before even the prayer came. To cleanse the hearts of the people. To remove from them this shirk that they had. This is how the companions understood this and how they implemented it. Our message, brothers and sisters, is so clear. And it's so simple, but we often, as I said, overcomplicate things. We don't want to invite the people to abstaining from pork. We don't want to invite sisters to wearing hijab. This is not our message that we're delivering to the people. We invite the sisters to worship one God. And when they don't get that and they start asking about other things, we deal with their questions, but we re-invite them to worshiping one God. And we keep mentioning this. We invite to Allah and we discuss with them with this subject until they're in 100% agreement. Good job. That's better than I could have done. And if they bring up other points, we're not evasive. We don't try to, run around and not answer them. We're not shy. We try to answer their questions, but we always bring it back to our message. And we repeat. I was so stubborn. Somebody might have told me 30 times, why are you praying to Jesus? How can you pray? Jesus died. Who are you praying to then? If Jesus was God, who was he praying to? All this stuff that people would tell me, and it makes perfect sense now. It didn't make an ounce of sense back then. It was in one ear, floated around, probably didn't stay long, went out somewhere else. Jesus not being God, it just didn't make sense. It got to repeat it like 30, 40 times. But then finally one day, it clicked. And so I encourage people that you do repeat. You do give the same message in a different way. But you always come back to that theme of we establish the oneness of worship with Allah. And just as it says when we call the Christians, we invite them to worship the one true God. And we keep doing this. So then how do we deliver this message? Allah says in the Quran, in that verse we mentioned earlier, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي. Say, this is my way. أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ عَلَى بَصِيرَةٍ. I invite to Allah with pure knowledge, or with true, clear knowledge.